financial crisis, the world economy. My perspective is that the world economy leads for the vast majority in terms of well-being.
Right.
And then we have to address for those who fall out of the system.
Exactly.
How we.
Right.
But what are your views on that?
This is a U.S.-centered crisis that will remain mainly U.S.-centered, actually. Of course, it reflects the complexity of a financial system that's also innovated and changed so fast that it's hard even to know what's going on and hard to regulate properly. I don't think it's going to bring the world economy down. I think it will contribute to a recession in the United States. Then the cautions disappear and the go-go days start again.
And do you think, first, is it a goal to avoid these crises, or that's part of the system? The part of the financial system is the fragility or the exposure to some sort of regular crisis.
We've not learned clearly how to avoid financial crises because they keep coming
back.
But I think it's also fair to say that certain things have been learned. Certain kinds of crises have diminished a lot. Say in the United States, we used to have not only financial crises, but bank runs and banking collapses every 15, 20 years. And then when two things happened, the Federal Reserve was created at the beginning of the 20th century to be a lender of last resort, and deposit insurance and the regulation of commercial banking came. That stopped the bank collapses. Now we're going to investment banks, not the depository banks, and we're seeing crises in those. But I think the experience with safer commercial banking based on deposit insurance, government regulation, and the central bank being a lender of last resort, that's a strategy that took 75 years to learn, say from the middle of the 19th century to the Great Depression of the 20th century in the United States. But once it was learned, it actually led to a more stable economy. So I don't think, to answer your question, that we should just regard these crises as inevitable without anything to do. I think we should think, okay, leverage, irresponsibility, using other people's money, this has certain implications. You need government regulation, you need transparency, you need capital limits, you need regulation to avoid all kinds of moral hazard problems, even direct illegality and fraud in financial markets. You need deposit insurance of some kind in commercial banking to stop self-fulfilling panics. These are general lessons of how to reduce the number and extent of these crises.
Looking forward, we will have a new administration in the U.S. Do you think, first, that the U.S. is ready or could be ready for Obama as a president? And if so, what do you think that would be the outcome of the new policies that affect all the issues we've been discussing?
Well, certainly Obama's got very good chances. He's ahead in the polls, and we're in a pretty bad economic situation in the U.S. and with an unpopular war. And so you have to say that the mood is for change, and Obama represents change. So I think that there's a good chance he'll be president. If he is president, I think there are certain basic issues that are likely to change in the U.S. I think the war in Iraq would be really reconsidered in a pretty basic way. I think the Bush tax cuts would be reconsidered in a pretty basic way. I think the climate change policies and the way that the U.S. Operates in global negotiations would be changed in a pretty basic way. I think in any event, the next president's going to inherit financial problems, heavy debt, household sector that has, been overspending and overborrowing based on housing prices that have now fallen sharply, big budget deficits. It's going to be hard slogging ahead for the next few years for the United States. The U.S. will not be the dynamic center of the world economy.
Regarding the other issues we've talked, you think that new administration will be more aware of their need to correct policies on climate change, signing the Kyoto agreements or the new Kyoto agreement?
Well, let me put it bluntly, couldn't be less aware, because this administration spent 8 years doing nothing.
Okay.
I mean, literally nothing. And what people should understand on an issue like the climate change is that if you lose 8 years, you're not simply losing time. That whole period, you're filling the atmosphere with more and more greenhouse gases. So it's not just that we're 8 years later to start, we're starting from a worse situation. So I think history is going to be very harsh on the Bush administration,
Yes.
on the Bush era, for having wasted time at big risk for the world.
Are you positive on the world in 2020?
You know, you have to be.
You have to be.
You have to take a positive view and work towards it.
Okay.
That's what I try to do.
That's a great closing remark. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much for being with Management TV. See you soon.